Hey, what's up guys? I'm Mr. Chris with Infotainment.com. Today we have an upgrade for the model years 2017 through 2024 Chrysler Pacifica and Voyager. We're going to be giving you wireless Apple Carplay and Android Auto capabilities with this upgrade. So if you want to know how to get that done, stay tuned. I'm going to show you how to install that. All right, what we're going to be going to is the UBC, which is also 7-inch, but this will give you the wireless CarPlay and Android Auto capabilities. After we install this, I'll run through some of the features. We're going to pull this out and we're going to install the 10.1-inch UBN option code, which is this giant screen, as well as Android Auto and Apple CarPlay wireless capabilities. So getting into the install is pretty easy. This radio is actually just held in with a bunch of retaining clips all around the perimeter. You can use a pry tool if you want and pull to pop that whole radio bezel with AC vents and everything out. And actually for the smaller radio, we're actually going to reuse some of these parts. First things first, we'll get this unplugged. Got that paddle style connector on the back of the radio. Depress the little button and swing that lever up. And the antenna connectors, as well as your USB connector back there. Once you get all those unplugged, we can set this aside and we can swap over some parts to our new radio bezel for the UBC radio that we're going to put in here. All right, so we have our original radio here. We have the new bezel that comes with our upgrade. We have a bracket that we're going to need to swap into our new bezel, as well as our new radio module. Basically what we have to do is we have to reuse the 4 screws behind the factory radio and swap over the AC vents onto the new bezel. So to get started, we'll pull the 7 mils out. All right, we can set those aside. And we'll need to pull these vents off, and these are T15 Torx screws. All right, once you have the vent and the radio screws out, you're not going to need this whole thing. You can set this aside. All right, and then we can move on to the new radio bezel. Now, you'll notice there's retaining clips going all the way around the perimeter. The bottom section has 3 orange clips on it. This is a separate bracket, and we're going to need to remove this bracket for the upgrade. And now we can bring over our custom bracket that will sit in the original location as the bracket we just removed. We'll grab our radio. At the top of the radio has this U-shaped metal portion that's sticking out of the top. That's to align with that top alignment pin right there. So I'm going to stick that in first and slide the radio down and in. There we go. Now we can reattach this radio with the screws we removed from our original one. All right, now that we got the radio secured, we'll grab our AC vents and drop those into place. And we can reinstall all those T15 Torx screws. All right, all the hard work is done. Now we can go and install this back into our dash. All right, when you're going to the 7-inch UBC upgrade, all you're gonna need is 3 connectors. This is all included with your kit. And basically, you're gonna install the main harness into your factory main radio connector. The teal colored or this bluish colored Fakra is gonna go to the curry colored Fakra on there. And on the other end, this is also teal. This is gonna go to the blue connector behind your radio. And then you have this last one, which is your USB or your media hub connector. And I'll grab my radio here and I'll just start plugging everything that we got in here. Blue one goes in first, then the white one right next to it. Then we have our media hub connector. The last two are the green and blue main radio connectors. And that's pretty much it. Now we can spin this around. We'll line up all the clips in here. Make sure nothing's gonna impede us from plugging this radio back into our dash. Snap it in place, and that's pretty much it. I'm gonna turn this on, show you some of the features, and then we'll move away from the 7-inch and install the 10-inch. All right, you can see we got our radio powered up. From the source screen, you can access your Sirius XM radio, AM, FM, Bluetooth options. I'm gonna go ahead and pair my phones off screen, and we'll come back and show you the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay functions of the radio. All right, you can see I got my phone all paired up. We got Android Auto here, wireless obviously. You can jump into your media source, your maps. Come down here, we can get into all of the other features that Android Auto has to offer. This should all be very familiar for you guys. Let me jump out of Android Auto, connect the Apple CarPlay, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, I got my iPhone linked up to the radio. As you can see, you have your maps here. It should all look very familiar to everybody. I use YouTube Music. You would have your streaming audio service here. Got your phone, all the very familiar layout that you have with Apple CarPlay, with the benefit of it being wireless. All right, so going from the 7-inch screen, we're gonna swap this out for the 10.1-inch screen, which is the UBN option code. So let's get into that now. All right, so we'll go ahead and pull this radio out. Same way we did the factory one. And I'm gonna disconnect all of the harnesses, but I'm gonna keep them plugged into the vehicle side because we're gonna reuse all of these connectors for the 10.1. Okay, so aside from the harnesses that we previously installed, we do have to install another harness that's gonna power our screen. We also have to install a security gateway bypass module and run a Genie programmer, which we have up here, to program the vehicle to know that it has the 10.1-inch screen in here. What we're going to need to do is pop out our center button stack here, which has your climate control and your gear select on there. This is just held in with some retaining clips as well. And what I like to do is use 2 panel tools. I'll get one up and the top side of this whole bezel just to try to give me some clearance so I can get a thicker, more robust tool in there. And then you can just work your way around, popping those clips out. All right. Once we have this out, we can kind of swing this to the side. This center connector right here is the one that we're going to be concerned with. I'm going to unplug that, plug in the harness that we have included with the kit. The 2 black side of the connectors will just be the pass-through. And the gray side, we're actually going to fish this up through a hole that's in our radio cavity. This is going to plug into our screen, but we don't have to worry about this right this second. We're going to actually be concerned with that gateway module that's straight behind here. It has a little white part number tag on there, but on the bottom there's 2 plugs, a 8-pin and a 12-pin plug. We're going to need to unplug that so we can install a gateway bypass module here. That's basically just going to plug in to here just so we can program it. Once the programming is done, we can unplug this, plug the security gateway back in, and we won't need to use this anymore. So it's a little tight in there. If you need to, you can grab a Phillips head screwdriver or a 7mm socket and remove the module so it's easier to unplug. But if you have really good finger dexterity, you should be able to unplug both connectors without removing that. Just like that there. And we'll grab our bypass and plug it in. All right, before I go ahead and reinstall everything, I want to get that programming done and out of the way so I can put the gateway module all back together. You don't need the radio installed for this portion. We're just going to turn the ignition on. I'm gonna plug in our programmer, and you're gonna see some flashing lights. What you're basically gonna do is wait for the green light and the horn to honk. We got the horn honk. That means that we've been successfully programmed, as well as that green light. We can go ahead and pull our programmer out, and now we can continue with the rest of the install. All right, now that we got the vehicle programmed, I went ahead and reinstalled the 2 connectors that came out of our security gateway module, and I put my bypass back in the bag. This gray plug right here, I'm actually gonna run it back and up through into the radio cavity right there, and that's the connector that we're gonna plug into the back of our screen. But we can go ahead and snap our climate control and all of our buttons back into place. And this part of the install, all the harnessing, is completed. Now, if you're going from an 8.4-inch screen to one of our Uconnect 5 upgrades, you are going to need to add this connector in. So if your vehicle has a plug like this green dual connector plug here with something plugged into it, you're going to unplug that. You're going to plug in our included harness so you can continue to make those, I believe that's Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connections. For this application, we don't have that, so we're not going to worry about that. But what we have to do now is we actually have to install this large bracket here to mount our radio module. So this goes in there pretty easily. It is bigger than the hole that you're working with, but don't let that intimidate you. This arm right here actually gets mounted way back there, but because of the build of it, you can actually just bend it kind of out of the way. So it'll be very easy to get into the cavity. Once you have it in place, you can swing that back out to meet the mounting point back there. But before we slide this in there, on the bottom of our dash on the inside, there's 2 screws that actually go in this location here. So we're going to pull those out, so when we get the bracket in there, we can replace those screws supporting our bracket in the bottom. All right, we got those out. And what's also included is a set of 5 screws to make the remaining bracket connections in there. I'll slide this up in here, and you kind of gotta wiggle it around some stuff, but you should be able to get it in there pretty easily. And make sure all my harnesses are coming out of where I want them to. All right, so with the bracket in place, you can see the top of the bracket actually lines up with the holes up here in our dash. The bottom holes all line up. So now from here, we'll just go ahead and install all the screws that we're missing. I'm going to start with the 2 that I removed on the bottom. That one screw that goes on that swing arm back there, it's really not necessary. Once you have all of the easy to get to screws mounted, you'll see how sturdy this is. That's really an optional screw. If you don't want to do it, you really don't have to. All right, now we're ready for the module. We'll just do like before and plug in all of our connections. All right, we got all those taken care of. Now there's one more connection that's actually going to come from the module going to the screen. That's going to give us our video feed. So we'll plug that in. Undo these zip ties, or these twist ties rather. There we go. All right, just like that. And if you did everything right, all you're gonna have on the outside are the 2 connections for the screen. But the mounting holes for the module on the bracket, those are gonna be tightened down with your OEM radio screws. So we're gonna go ahead and pull those off of our OEM bezel and get those into our radio bracket. All right, we got our module all nice and secure. Now we're just ready to plug in our screen. Once our screen's plugged in, we can tap it into place. That looks good. All right, let's turn it on and see what she looks like. All right, as you can see, this screen is absolutely massive. Very high def screen too. It's a really nice looking image, not just a big image. But you have all your controls in here. You have your climate, your navigation. It's probably gonna have a hard time finding us because we're indoors right now. Your phone, which I'll pair a phone to this to show you the Apple Carplay and Android Auto wireless feature. And your settings, you also have your apps menu in here. But let me go ahead and pair a phone and I'll come right back. All right, as you can see, we have the wireless Android Auto up here. Just looks so impressive on this massive screen. I got my music app. I like using YouTube Music. And the maps. You can see you're not gonna have a hard time finding where you're going with the screen of this size. Very easy to read. You've seen the Android Auto. Let's switch over to the Apple CarPlay so you can see the difference. All right, as you can see, I have the Apple CarPlay up and running, all wireless. You have all of the familiar layout with the Apple CarPlay. You have all your apps in here. Just looks fantastic on this giant screen. All right, as you can see, everything looks nice and sleek, very premium. Definitely a very good upgrade from that factory radio. All right, so that pretty much wraps up this install. If you're looking for an upgrade to make your vehicle feel a little bit more up to date and more premium, this might be the option for you. If you're going from a 7-inch to a 7-inch Uconnect 4 to Uconnect 5, you're going to gain that wireless capabilities with your Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. If you want something much bigger, you're going to look for the 10.1-inch, and you're still going to gain those wireless capabilities. If you like this upgrade and you want to see more just like it, be sure to head back to infotainment.com. Thanks for watching.